So let's plan out how to build out Jarvis, or my version of Jarvis based on Jared's Jarvis. Make sure you have access to his prompts. They should be in the documents folder if you haven't stored them some other place. Hey guys, while I'm waiting for Claude Code to do its thing and we begin the planning stages for how to adapt Jared's Jarvis to my system, I'm going to kind of explain what's going on. This is actually the planning stage. I have downloaded Jared's prompts for building out his Jarvis. My system is a little bit different. I don't have the Obsidian Vault set up, but from previous conversations with my Claude Code, we don't need it for this project. So I'm going to walk you through building out my version of Jarvis. I have a rough idea, and it will get refined more and more. But the first thing is to have Claude Code examine the prompts, examine my system, determine what we have, and then figure out what is the very first step. What's the first thing to work on? Should it be the actual look of Jarvis? Should it be the voice interaction where he can actually talk back? Anyway, we're going to find out by talking to Claude Code, which I do by using the built-in voice-to-text feature. I press the spacebar, the command line will show a volume meter, and then I start talking. My voice gets translated to text on the command line. Then I hit the enter key and Claude can read that. So let's see, what is it trying to do? This is one of those steps where you always want to read things. I don't always know what it means, but you don't want Claude Code doing everything automatically. You don't know what might go wrong. I don't have enough of a relationship with Claude. I don't have enough guidelines in place to feel confident that Claude can do everything on its own. Now, I have recently started trusting Claude to do the updates to my GitHubs fully automated without me having to say you can push, you can merge. That's working out. That's a simple task that is repeatable, and it's hard to mess that up. So saying yes, allow reading. See, I do this when I ask it to do something and it wants to read something. I let it do the whole process instead of just getting multiple prompts saying you want to proceed. This one particular task, I let it have full autonomy to finish the read task without stopping and asking me every single time if it can read a document. See what it says there's a real gap. I searched thoroughly and there's no saved prompts file. Only documents. Jared live replay exists. Transcript, not the actual prompts, live at jared.com prompts. And I know we downloaded them because I give them to him before. He forgot where I put them. So now he's trying to fetch the prompts from jared.com, found the content, three actual prompts, the voice, the visualizer, the cinematic camera, which map exactly to the existing milestones 1 through 6 plan, but the fetch summarized rather than gave the full but precision engineered build specs worth having word for word, not paraphrased to let me try to pull the complete text. So it's trying to pull the prompt file that Jared posted on his website. I may have to manually go get it, but Claude is pretty good at finding these things. Got to scroll back up because he scrolled past the point where we left off. Real content found. That's the right one. Fetch Jared prompts. That's one of the bad things about this text scrolling is hard to figure out where I was and scroll back up. So real important finding. When I asked for the full verbatim text, the fetch declined to reproduce correctly, treating it as Jared's own specific creative technical work rather than something copy wholesale through me. That's the right call. But he posted these specifically to let us copy and paste and build our own Jarvis. So it's saying up here, that's the right call. Real important finding. When I asked for the full verbatim text, the fetch declined to reproduce it. What does that mean? Once the right practical patch, you visiting the page yourself and pasting the actual prompt text in when we're ready to use it. That respects his work while getting you the exact spec. What do I have? Real structure confirmed to exist, matching the existing plan exactly. Prompt, voice line, hold to talk voice conversation. Yep, that's what I'm currently doing with Claude. Visualizer, a screen browser reacting live to the voice assistant through a small local server, meaning they're going to build something on my local machine that's going to render this. What visualizer? Its own project layout, a mock harness for testing without real voice pipeline running. This is just the planning stages based on the prompts. The cinematic camera, I don't know if I really care about that, where it's kind of, if I remember correctly, it's like a flyover of the screen rather than just having Jarvis on the screen all the time. A fly-through rendered live over the actual running scene. Yep, that's what he demonstrated before. It was cool, but maybe not for me. I would prefer to have more of a Jarvis. He originally presented a Matrix-like raining of text in the background from the Matrix movie simulated, and then a face appears made out of the scrolling text. Real useful correction to the existing plan. And Jarvis-CLI picked as the voice input tool researched and cloned back on 7-Eleven. The voice line prompt is a different approach entirely. It's not a pre-built tool to install. It's a spec you hand to Claude Code and have it build fresh, tailored to your exact machine. Explicitly told it to be platform agnostic, going over that. So I'm trying to build this out so it's portable, so that anyone can reproduce this on whatever system they have, whatever they're using, ChatGPT or OpenAI or their own LLM locally installed. That's what I'm hoping for, making it portable, so they don't have to replicate exactly what Jared had built using his exact system. It might or might not work out. Concrete next step. When you're ready to start milestone 1 for real, open jared.com prompts. Copy the actual voice line prompt text, paste it into me. I'll follow it exactly as written, which is literally what the prompt itself instructs. Adapt your Windows GTX 1660 video card to the setup. That's a 5-minute step on your end. It gets you real spec instead of my reconstruction of it. I want to go that route. Yep, see that down here at the command line, it kind of gives you a idea of what to do next. Sometimes down here, it suggests stuff I don't want to do, especially if I get off topic. I go and do these side tangents. I'll think of something and get off on a tangent, and then it'll try to continue the conversation on the tangent rather than going back to the original project. So now I just need to go here. And one of the sucky things about copying the command from the screen here, not command line, the screen. See where it says copy 21 characters? That's a tough thing to get used to. If you highlight it, it's going to copy it automatically. If I paste it in this remote, this is my remote machine. See up at the top, it's got the RDP session name. I'm actually connected to my remote PC. So it's hard to copy this from that PC and then paste it into a browser on my PC I'm using to control all this. I can open up a browser and paste it. Let's see here, new window. That'll be the easiest thing. Just open up a new browser here, copy and paste that jared.com into the browser. I don't want to restore all the old pages, but I don't want to lose them either. I'll close it down and open another browser. And now it doesn't matter if I close out this one because there's already an existing restore point in the other one. It's complicated. Let's see if we can get there from here. There we go. There are his prompts. I'm not a fan of this green text because it's hard to read. I already have to wear glasses to read stuff this small, so let's blow it up a bit and place it so that we can see both screens, both web page and the prompts and plot at the same time. That may be an issue, but we'll work it out. So I need to copy actual voice line prompt text. So scroll down the voice line, paste this whole. Fortunately, he gives you a copy. You can either go in here and copy all that or just copy the prompt. I'm going to go ahead and tell Claude what we're doing using his built-in suggested answer. See what he says. Otherwise, he might not know what to do with the prompt once I paste it in there without some kind of context. So here he is. He understands now. Go ahead and paste it. One thing worth deciding in parallel, still has the repo creation and dry run versus live questions open from a couple of messages ago. Yeah, we're working on all that. Since we're switching from Jarvis-CLI to voice line prompt, I'll update that file to reflect swap once you have pasted the prompt in. No need to answer the repo questions separately. They'll fall out naturally once we see what the voice line spec actually asks for. So I should just be able to right click. You won't see it because I'm clicking my mouse. Right click on the mouse, I'm going to paste it in there. That's the entire prompt. That's the way it shows up when you have multiple lines. There's probably a way to expand that I'm not used to doing it, so I don't want to mess things up. I'm going to hit the enter key, give the prompt. There's the entire prompt from Jared's site. Claude is looking at it right now and reading it. Scroll back there, I missed it. There's the beginning of the prompt. Let's see what he has to say about it. He's zesting right now. He's zesty. He's zingy, as I heard Sheldon once say on a restaurant scene where he was working at Penny's Cheesecake Factory to let his brain do other tasks while he did mundane things, suggesting a customer try some salsa because it was zingy. Building the exact spec, starting with environment checks and the, oops, there it goes. Building to spec, starting with the environment checks. Everything is okay. It found, well, it knows about the graphics card. You don't have to have the best graphic card in the world to run Claude Code. You do need a better one than what I have if you want to render video locally on the machine rather than using HeyGen, which is what I do. Remotion runs fine locally, but real video, like my clone avatar, has to be done by HeyGen off of the machine. What's this? So it's got FFmpeg, which is the video rendering engine, I believe. UV, whatever that is. UV managed environments, don't know what that is. Whisper, the voice setup is not there. Two things, voice choice. So in the beginning, I'm just going to go with the free stuff just to make it work. May want to go to 11 Labs later to make my own voice clone, depending on what kind of voice I want. Jarvis. Right now, the working name for Jarvis is going to be Monte, M-O-N-T-E, which is kind of a homage to, tribute to Monty Python, Project Monty from The Big Bang Theory, and I actually had a Python, a real live 12-foot Python, that his name was also Monty Python, and I worked with a guy named Monty. Okay, so prompts at the bottom, the suggested prompts, wants to go ahead and create the repo apparently. So the project location is in Jarvis project notes, MD file, which is stored locally. Now it wants to give it its own repo separate from the folder it's in right now. The project folder that Claude is running in right now, it's called YouTube Downloader. And let's see what else. I wanted this to be a standalone project and its own repo so that anyone could download it and just run it if they wanted to, versus building it out from his prompts. And also it would have my tweaks and improvements that made it specific to me. What else? Create the new repo now. Do I want to do that now as the very first step? It doesn't matter right now. The spec wants the voice sessions CWD, that is, set to the project folder whose Claude MD file defines your identity. So the voice session is the same assistant as my terminal sessions. Got to figure that one out. Want they pointed at the new voice line repo itself. Refresh, minimal, Claude MD, or the YouTube. I'm going to go with whatever it says here in the command line as a start. That's the suggested path. Let's just get it up and going as a minimum viable product. We can move things later on if needed, and Claude Code will do all that. Make sure everything still works once it's moved. I do know that I want this as its own separate project folder. I don't want this in the YouTube downloader folder. It's a separate project. It's not meant to be part of the YouTube downloader. One of those things where you don't know till you start building stuff. And I really wanted an orchestrator type of setup so that at the top root folder, there was a Claude running that knew what was in the sub-project folders. Each sub-project folder had its own Claude agent maintaining it, like a bunch of managers. We had one director, a bunch of individual managers, but I've been putting off reworking the entire folder structure and Claude to work that way. I'm afraid of breaking something. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not at that level of proficiency yet. I'm just building and learning as I go. I started out with a very simple project. I got tired of having to watch so many videos about AI, trying to get to the very basic ideas that I was trying to figure out, the point of the videos. So I started downloading the transcripts manually, copying and pasting them into one of the artificial intelligence platforms like ChatGPT, distilling the notes down to the core things and asking questions that way. And after a few months of doing that, I had hundreds of files, transcripts sitting there in a folder. I said, it's got to be a better way. So that's what started out the whole YouTube downloader problem solution. I got Claude to help me build a YouTube transcript downloader using the YouTube API. So it started running a daily program, downloading the transcripts from the channels that I was interested in. It would convert the transcripts into markdown files, create a digest of the content of the transcript, and I can ask questions of it. That was the very first thing I built. And it's just kind of keep features to it as I keep building onto it and needing new things. It eventually turned into a tool that also downloaded the comments so I could figure out what the audience was asking about. What kind of things were they having problems with that I might be able to solve and then offer up as my own video series. Just like this Jarvis, I am part of Jared's Substack, and I see all the questions people are asking, and Jared doesn't have enough time to step away from his businesses, answer every single question, so maybe I can help out with that by building my own Jarvis from his prompts and then helping other people build their Jarvises. They could even follow along with this video series, hopefully. Hopefully it works out that way, that they can actually watch my video series building it out so they know what they're going to run into, what you're going to run into. Anyway, it looks like Claude Code is still working on it. It says blanching at the bottom. I like the way they have these different euphemisms for progress, for thinking, for working. It's going to try its best to download everything it might need to start the project. It's going to install the Python repos that it needs to do the voice. It's going to try to find the engine that animates Jarvis. Looks like it's trying to run a Docker desktop. Docker may not be activated yet. I had problems getting Docker installed early on. Docker is warming up. One of the problems I have with this machine is not a lack of RAM. It's not a lack of video RAM for processing. It's the fact I'm running a platter hard drive. This PC did have a SSD, but power surges killed the SSD, and I slapped an old 2 terabyte platter drive into this HP CapCut PC that Claude's running on, so it does run slower because it has to access the hard drive, which is slower than an SSD hard drive. So that's why it's taking Docker probably longer to spin up in the background. I don't think it really affects Claude Code itself, because Claude goes out to the cloud when it tries to reason and think. But anything on the hard drive is noticeably slower since I swapped from a SSD drive to a platter drive. What is that popping up in the background? Hope it's not Windows. Oh, there's Docker setup. Okay, see, I wonder if this is going to cause a problem. Let's get him out of the way. Eventually Claude will tell me if this is even something to worry about or not. Let's see here, so it looks like it wrote the file. Yep, signals Python file. That right there, signals.py. If you're not familiar with it, .py indicates it's a .py is the extension for Python files. So what did it do so far? Starting the build, creating the repo at voice line, matching the specs, UV installed, path is clear, found it, using full path and running everything in one chain command, environment set up cleanly, Python Win32 came in as a real dependency too, Spotify ducking piece, it'll be done later, checking what's needed for the 2 local servers, so it's actually building 2 local servers on my local machine, the type HP CapCut machine, Whisper, CUDA build, Operos for the voice, Docker desktop is in the background, preferring real API streaming with raw Anthropic API events via something or other, something blah blah blah. The token deltas, whatever that means. I guess that means it's got access to the token credits, assuming. Checking Docker status. Docker is still initializing. I'll write the Python file. So that's what you see right here. It's writing the Python file in parallel with Docker starting up. Do you want me to create the file? So it wrote it, it just hasn't saved it yet. So I'm going to go ahead and give it full access to go ahead and finish up everything it might need to do, because if I just say yes, it may pop up again and again asking for more permissions to finish the file, which I would give it anyway. This just saves a few clicks and a little bit of time. As I said before, you can tell Claude to run it without asking permission and it will do it. I still like to see what's happening and why and try to get familiar with the processes so that maybe one day I'll be able to look at it and go, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. Don't don't that file, don't overwrite that file. I've actually had that happen a couple of times where I noticed something was about to be done. It says, hey, can I move this? Can I delete this? Oh, no, don't do that. Let me make a backup first. Oh, that's another thing. I do have a daily backup running to my NAS, which is a physical device on the network. The entire folder structure for everything, all my projects, it's all backed up completely to my NAS so that if in an event of a catastrophic event, I can recover the entire project, everything related to every project I'm running in Claude Code. So I have a task right here in Task Scheduler, the built-in Task Scheduler in Windows that runs independently of Claude Code. It just kicks off at noon every day. In roughly 31 minutes, it's going to kick off. It'll pop up here with a black screen indicating that it's making the backup, and it's a full backup. It does not delete anything in the existing backup. It just adds more to it. That way I can restore everything if something gets corrupted. I also at the same time have this folder that Claude lives in synchronized to my Google Drive, but unlike the NAS backup, the Google Drive backup is synchronized to the changes that Claude makes. So if Claude deletes something in that file, the project, it gets deleted on the Google Drive too. So it's an exact copy of the existing state of the project folders. It doesn't have the previous files like on my NAS. So if I had a catastrophic failure, I could not restore from Google Drive reliably, but I could restore reliably from my NAS because I could give Claude access to the NAS. It could figure out what was before the catastrophic failure and what needs to be replaced and figure it all out. So now it's doing ducking.py, which is an equivalent to AppleScript's Spotify volume control. See, Jared built his on a Apple machine. So I have to Claude's going to figure out how to build this on a Windows PC running Windows 10. So there is a real difference in your builds. If you're not running an Apple, then you can't use all the same tools that Jared used to build his Jarvis. But that's the good thing about Claude Code. It can figure it out. It'll test the code to make sure it works. That's some of the amazing. Almost like, as long as it's digital, it's like rubbing a genie bottle and making a wish. It will try to figure it out. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to know how to ask the correct questions, and you also need to know the right guidelines. You need to know the gotchas, because sometimes you'll just say, hey, give me the simplest solution, and Claude may interpret that as literally, what's the simplest solution? Delete the database. Yeah. So when I was first in Claude Code, one of the things I was researching was best practices. I was going out onto Google and searching for what would a professional coder put in place for an enterprise level project. And I would run that through different AI engines to build up a structure, sorry, I had to cough there, to build out a structured guideline to give to Claude Code as a set of rules for building out projects in a professional way. And I kept adding to it, taking away, adding to it, as I learned more and more from watching different YouTube videos and just running queries with different AI engines, trying to be as professional as possible and implement every safety measure and testing features to make sure code was written cleanly and efficiently to enterprise level standards, that it had guide rails as far as making sure that it didn't break anything when it wrote the code, so it has testing metrics in it. It runs the code it writes against the entire project to make sure that nothing got broke in a sandbox before it actually implements the code. And it looks out for things like security measures so that it does not push my API keys, my passwords, my cookies, anything being used to connect to different sources for purposes of the project. You have to learn what to tell it to ignore. But if you tell Claude Code to make sure that the right things are ignored, and occasionally tell it to scan your GitHub repo for anything that should not be there. Personal information, just personal files, plans, keys. You have to kind of occasionally do a manual to make sure that nothing slipped past Claude's security features, just to be sure. Because sometimes it will assume that maybe a project plan should go in the repo when you really didn't want it to. It doesn't matter. It just makes it look cleaner if you don't have your own personal stuff in there that's specific to what you're trying to do versus having a project where someone can download it the way Jared is doing without all his personalizations. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, instead of giving you the prompts, I'm trying to build a repo that has the basics of the program without all the tweaks and personalizations to the voice, how I want Claude to sound or Jared to sound, personality, that kind of thing. So you can have your own clean baseline Jarvis, and then you give it its personality. You give it its look, behaviors. As you can see, it's taking quite a while to do this. This is normal. It's doing all these checks. It's probably also taking longer than if someone else didn't have all these testing features set up in their Claude Code. It might run faster. I don't know. I started building in the testing features and safety guidelines from the first day. Unfortunately, I'm not used to talking this much or this long, so my throat gets scratchy. Even drinking doesn't help. Not alcohol drinking, but Crystal Light lemonade drinking. The choice of coders. Vibe coders, Claude coders. Sure, I'm making this crap up. This is the boring part. I would just walk away and come back in 30 minutes or an hour. But because I'm talking to you, hopefully keeping you semi-entertained as this stuff scrolls by. This is bugging me, so it's that. Minimize stuff. Don't close it. I don't know what will happen if I close it, if it might interfere with Claude. I'm leaving that space open. Still deciding on what I want Jarvis to actually look like, except for I think we're going to start out with the matrix cascading characters in the background, and then whenever Claude, or rather whenever Jarvis needs to respond, his face will appear in the raining matrix characters. His face will appear, he'll talk, and then he'll fade back into the background of the character cascade. I really like that. I was a big fan of the Matrix movie. When I found that movie, I was blown out of my mind. I could not under. It was such a what I was used to. I think the year was 1999 when it came out, and the special effects were nothing like I'd ever seen before. The movie was unknown. I had gone to the theater to watch it. I was literally one of 3 people in the theater, and I walked out of that movie just being blown away. And then, of course, it caught on. It was so amazing. But it made me start thinking later on, if you were Neo, or if you were the other guy, the guy who Matrix, would you really want to leave the Matrix? If you knew Matrix existed and there was a real world and you had a choice, would you want to live like Neo, eating that goopy, oatmeal-y stuff every day for the rest of your life, fighting off machines that are trying to kill you, living in a cold, damp, hover submarine type thing? Or would you like to be in the Matrix and be a rock star, or a multimillionaire living on a yacht, traveling the world with anything and everything that you could possibly want? I honestly think I'd go back in the Matrix. Sort of like these guys who are preppers that are preparing for the end of the world. Alright, let's see, what's installing? Some type of speaking software that do that. Text-to-speech software, okay. These doomsday preppers, would you want to survive a nuclear holocaust? Give up everything you have right now. Eventually gasoline would run out, electricity would shut off, water would quit flowing, food would run out, no air conditioning. We would be fighting roving gangs of people who didn't have much, and they were trying to take other people. There would be warlords, just like seeing the science fiction movies. There would be roving gangs of people trying to steal what they could because they didn't know any other way. You had people starving all over. The entire infrastructure would fall apart. Our cities would break down. Policing would break down. It would be lawlessness everywhere because everybody would pretty much be on their own. You didn't join some type of community. Yeah, I don't think I would live that life. I think it's kind of silly, these guys who drive around in these trucks that are all prepared for some type of doomsday thing. Like, dude, you're stupid because you're everybody that you're prepared. So guess where they're going to target to get supplies? They're going to come for you. I have a gymnasium next to my apartment complex, and there's a guy who drives this big Apocalypse body kit truck. It's called the Apocalypse. It stands out like a turd in a punch bowl when it goes down the street. It looks like nothing anybody else drives. Big monster 4-wheel drive pickup truck. And his license plate says, "Are you ready? I am." Well, this is like he's breaking one of the of Zombie World, the movie. Don't advertise the fact that you have resources. And of course, unless he's just running his own business selling those kind of products, selling that body kit, selling the resources for doomsday preppers. But if you were just a prepper, don't advertise what you got. Drive around in a nondescript, boring vehicle. Don't tell anybody. It just makes you a target. I forgot all the rules for Zombieland, except for the one where it says, always know your way out. That's a good one. The double tap is a good one. Let's see here. Real problem. This installed into its own VNV, of a separate one for Kerberos. Stopping it and restarting. Okay, now it looks like it's good. It's unaffected. Nothing within. Keep going. Keep going. Still Kerberos voice. Looks like. Trying to fix that, making it work properly. From what I can gather, PowerShell is what it uses to run the commands. So there's an invisible PowerShell window running in the background to run the Windows commands. Windows PowerShell looks a whole lot like this. This is Windows Terminal, which is different in certain ways. It's sort of like either document in Microsoft Word or creating a document using Pad. Each one has its own features. PowerShell is a little bit more powerful than Windows Terminal Session, so that's why this thing runs everything in PowerShell. I opened up this Claude command line in Windows Terminal because this thing would let me say have multiple terminals open at the same time in like a browser interface that I can save and restart later on. With PowerShell, you can't save them. As far as I'm aware, there's no PowerShell browser that you have multiple tabs. So when you close the PowerShell window, it's gone. You have to go back in, navigate to the right folder, then launch Claude. Whereas this one saves the session state and I can open it back up. It's already in the right folder. All I have to do is launch Claude and I'm up and going. The Kerberos is still setting up. Right here, Kerberos finishes setting up. It's doing a syntax check on everything to confirm that the microphone is detected. Now it can't hear my microphone, I don't believe at the moment, because I'm not pressing spacebar, but I could be wrong. Default input device is remote audio, which is me. This session appears to be running over RDP. Yep, not the physical mic, because there is no microphone in this remote PC. I'll flag this clearly since it would silently cause empty transcriptions if run as is, so it's going to have to fix that. We'll have to figure out how to make my remote microphone work this local machine. I mean, it does work because Claude can hear it, but the software that does the voice to text conversion doesn't know how to use it by default. Torch finished downloading. What Torch is, it's creating. Let's create the GitHub repo using the same shell structure as Monty SwarmOps Core, which is a different project I'm working on, which is a series of small projects to solve business problems. In my other videos, you saw one of the projects, which was my first SwarmOps feature, a file organizer. The features of SwarmOps give it a folder filled with random files. It will try to create categories for each one of the files based on the contents of the file. It'll create the folders. It'll move those files into the folders. It'll even rename the files to have a more specific name based on the content in the files. Anything it can't figure out, it puts into a folder for human review. It lets you know at the end the files were moved, how many categories were created, how many it couldn't figure out, and are waiting for human intervention. Let's see, no license needed to match the, okay, it's submitting and pushing the round. Maybe it will give me the URL the earlier stuck locked Cobro clone, the one I couldn't move to the file due to a file lock, got swept into the commit as an embedded Git repo. Cleaning it up now, so it must have made a mistake, put something in the repo that wasn't needed, just made it cluttered. Now it's committing the fix, pushing to master. That means it's pushing everything that has been built into the GitHub repo. The master is the main repo. One thing I need to turn on is the testing. There's a thing called a push request, which before you push anything to master, it tests things you're trying to push up there so that they don't break the repo. Professionals do that. They don't just push to master because you have the chances of screwing something up, especially if you have multiple people working on this project. They can all be pushing to the master. If they don't have these push requests that test what's doing versus what's actually in the repo, they might overwrite somebody else's stuff, break the project. Repo is clean, but since I'm the only one going to be repo, having that push request is not necessary. I just want to be in the habit of doing things the way professionals do it. Cobros, how's it doing? Reading one file, but it doesn't have a response yet. Whisper server is still healthy. Cool. Now it's trying to, okay, it wants to, this is Windows Defender saying, hey, do you want to let Python have access to private networks, which is where this connection comes in. So it's going to be, give it permission to talk in my home network versus the public networks, which is anything outside, anything on the other side of my home router from Xfinity. I give it access. I always do in Claude Code anyway. Otherwise, it can't do its thing. So either you stop here and don't give it access, or you give it access and keep going. So Cobros install is taking a while. So what do you want to do? You want to keep going, wait for Cobros to finish, then run the full end-to-end verify checklist. Wrap here for tonight. I have got to get Claude Code to keep track of the time because it is 11:53 a.m. Central Time, and here in Texas, I keep having to tell Claude, look, I got another 9 hours of daylight, keep going. Or you can, using your up and down keys, you can select these. If you don't agree with if you have something else you want to discuss as a different option, you type it right there. If you want to skip that part and go to another thing, completely different, or for some reason number 3 doesn't fit your purposes, go to here, it will stop the whole process, discuss it, and then you can go back to it. I'm going to choose keep going because I want to keep going. And I wonder how long I've been doing this. Oh, it's been 54 minutes since I kicked off this recording. I figured doing the initial setup was going to be a multi-hour process just because of experience doing other projects. You never know how long it's going to take, especially if you don't have a newer machine. My HP it was already a refurbished gaming PC when I got it. I got it mainly because I was doing CapCut editing, and my laptop just didn't have enough processing power to both edit with CapCut and surf the web at the same time, and rendering the video at the end after CapCut had edited everything. Man, a 30-minute video would take 3-4 hours to finish on my laptop because I didn't have a GPU. So I bought this machine, which was roughly $500, $600. I think like 24 gigs of RAM. Came with a video card with 6 gigs of RAM, and it's amazing how much faster it can process a 30-minute video when it has a video card with a few gigs of RAM in it. My processing time went from 4 hours down to less than 1 hour with all kinds of edits, transitions that were eating up a lot of processing time. Let's see, user answer Claude's question. Okay, that's where I click number 1. So right now it's just waiting for Cobros, the voice install. Finish, keep going. I didn't notice. I'm surprised it didn't scroll down automatically. Looks like the testing is done for the audio. Tested the speed for the voice to text translation. It's kind of slow, so it says it's kind of slow for the project. So it's confirming that it's running on the GPU and not the CPU to make sure it's running as fast as it can. GPU confirmed. It is running on the CPU despite the GPU launch. I have to fix that, maybe. Full brain it's brain.py pipeline confirmed with the real Claude Agent SDK, testing the actual feed script, the real dependency of the voice line. So it's letting Whisper servers doing the conversion, round trip success. The transcription came back word for word correct. Well, that's just the transcription. That doesn't mean it's working whenever I hold the keyboard down and talk to it. So I don't know where it's got, whether it gave it a file to translate, or if it actually had an audio file it used to test this. All clean and committed. Comprehensive verifications passed and complete. What's working? Build complete. What's proven working with real evidence, not just should work. Whisper, Cobros, full round trip test passed. Brain.py tested against the real Claude Code Agent SDK. Live query streaming, sentencing, sentence chunking, all worked. All modules syntax checked. Repo created and pushed. Copy that and show you that one. So it says copied. It's very hard for me not to right click and look for the word copy. Terminal works different than copying and pasting in regular documentation. The what still needs your live hands, not something I can simulate. Actual hold to talk loop. Yep. So it did not have live audio to process because it can't press the physical key. Two real honest findings. Not glossed over. Cobros is running on CPU, not GPU. Does it say how it's going to fix that? Works correctly, just a delay time. Oh, there goes my NAS backup for the entire folder. This is the root folder where everything is located, all my projects. The default mic input result, the remote audio, not the desktop mic, since this session is running remotely. We'll have to test all that. Launch, here we go. You want to leave the voice servers running and test it live right now, or wrap up for the night. Well, it's just now turned 12 p.m. Central Time, so I may take a break because this has been a very focus intense session. I need to let my brain rest and just quit thinking for a little while. I think this is the longest I've ever talked continuously in my life. So let me stop the recording now, and we'll come back and pick up exactly where I'm not going to give. And here, I'm just going to stop right here, and I will see you later.